What is wrong with being trans? That's going to be Candace Owens' best defense against Brigitte Macron's defamation lawsuit. I think there are other layers of the defense, but in my opinion, that's the juiciest. By now, some of you caught wind of the First Lady of France suing Candace Owens for defamation because Candace made videos questioning Brigitte's original gender. Now imagine that. The First Lady of another country coming to our country to sue a podcaster. If that doesn't reek of insecurity, I don't know. The reason for the lawsuit is that Candace says Brigitte was a man who transitioned at the age of 30. Brigitte is saying she was always a woman, even though everyone with eyes can see she has some masculine traits, especially her hands. So they disagree on Brigitte's original gender. But the stuff they do agree on is wild. Brigitte, in her own lawsuit, essentially admits to the following. She admits to meeting the now president of France, her husband, when she was 39 years old and he was 15. Some people are arguing that he was in fact 14 and not 15. I personally haven't done the research because it doesn't matter, okay? It doesn't matter. A pedo is a pedo. And as if she wrote the Predator playbook herself, following the Predator playbook perfectly, Brigitte was his teacher. All right, so she admits to the relationship starting off with a teacher-student situation, and she admits in her lawsuit that his parents moved him away, but somehow Palpatine returned. Somehow she won him back from his parents. Like, what the hell is that? Honestly, I thought about making a video about that fact in and of itself, but I think it's probably better suited for the channels that go predator hunting because based on her own admission, I'm pretty confident she's a predator. Like legally, this would not fly in the US at all. Anyways, back to the lawsuit. What Candace actually did was she followed the footsteps of some journalists who fell upon the idea that Brigitte apparently never had any photos of herself for like 30 years. Okay, like no photos at all. Like no photos of her as a little girl, no photos of her as a teenager, no high school yearbooks, no family photos, nothing. Now, these journalists thought that the reason is because she wasn't actually Brigitte. They think she was actually another person named Jean, who then assumed the identity of Brigitte, who is his dead sister, when he wanted to transition. Like, he was a guy named Jean, he wanted to transition, and his sister's name was Brigitte, and she was dead, so he thought, I'll just take her name and become Brigitte. An important point here is that Brigitte sued those journalists for defamation in France and she won, but then that lawsuit got overturned because the court found that their statements were made in good faith. Basically, it was overturned because the journalists believed it and the statements were a matter of public interest, so the court said, it's okay. This is very similar to US law in that regard, and we'll talk about it in a minute. Now, whether you believe this stuff or not, it doesn't matter. What I want to focus on is the lawsuit and whether or not Brigitte would actually win against Candace Owens in the US. Here are the elements for defamation of a public figure in Delaware where Brigitte sued Candace Owens. We've talked about defamation on this channel a lot before, so I'm just going to list them out in terms of what I think is the most relevant. The statement has to be published. Well, yeah, obviously it was on YouTube, duh. All right, the statement has to be false. Now we'll get to that. And the statement has to be done with actual malice since the First Lady of France is a public figure. Finally, there have to be damages. And that's where it gets a little interesting. Let's talk about the damages first. What exactly are the damages? Is Brigitte going to argue that being a transgender woman is damaging to her reputation? Why? Now really think about this. Brigitte would have to articulate in a court of law how being labeled a transgender caused her emotional distress and harm. Now in a normal world, yeah, being mislabeled like that can hurt someone in their everyday life. It could hurt your reputation. You don't know how people will treat you. But in the political world, is the First Lady of France really gonna argue that it's bad to be a transgender person? And I get it, this is kind of a meme argument because yeah, people treat transgender people differently, but she has to show that they treated her differently or that it ruined her reputation personally. I don't know. For me, the whole grooming thing kind of eclipses the transgender issue. Like, this is not even a problem for her. It's like OJ being worried about ruining his reputation for a burglary conviction in 2009 when we all know he murdered his ex-wife and a random dude in the 90s. Brigitte barely has a reputation left to tarnish. She's a groomer and a pedophile who seduced a young boy in her class even after his parents moved him to another school. This is by her admission in her lawsuit. She groomed him into marrying her, and now she's using his political power to stop a podcaster from saying mean things about her. Talk about a come up. But even if they get past the political meme of legally demonstrating how horrible it is to be trans, Brigitte won't get past the actual malice element in her case against Candace. Because Brigitte is a public figure, she has to prove that Candace knew the truth and still spread the lies, assuming first that Brigitte can prove these are actually lies. The easiest way for all of this to be resolved is to take a blood test and show her chromosomes. XX, you're biological female. XY, kiss your lawsuit goodbye. And for the actual malice argument, in a way, Brigitte egged on Candace Owens to think that she's hiding her true gender. When Candace reached out to Brigitte and her attorneys for comment, they responded with no answers to any of the questions. Then they refused to share any photos of Brigitte when she was a young girl. So you can start to see why Candace thought maybe there was no teenage Brigitte. Maybe teenage Brigitte was actually Jean. Maybe what those journalists was saying is actually true. I personally think a good argument would be that Brigitte's shady responses to Candace's requests perpetuated Candace's good faith belief that Brigitte was not in fact a woman. I think Candace should argue that. She should say that when Brigitte didn't answer questions about it, didn't give any photos, like not a single photo of her as a girl under the age of 30, that's kind of nuts, right? And obviously no blood test was given. So if I was Candace's lawyer, I would say it would make a journalist or any reasonable person think that this person in question is hiding their gender. Something about their gender. I mean, what else can you hide? You're either XX or you're, what else are you? Taken all together, Candace, like the journalists, will likely be able to knock out the actual malice element of the defamation lawsuit. But I'll tell you one thing. If Brigitte doesn't produce a freaking blood test in this lawsuit, I'm gonna start to think, what the hell is going on? Because the onus is on Brigitte. She's the one saying this is a false statement. She has to prove it, okay? Now, she has to prove that the transgender statement is false. So if she doesn't produce the most obvious way to do it, which is a blood test, something is up. Like, come on, show us the receipts. It's not that hard, it's not invasive, and it's basically what you wanted, right? You wanted to prove that this is all a lie. I mean, what do you guys think? Put XX or XY in the comments and let's hear some actual discussion.